Hey, welcome back to the Think Bigger Real Estate Show. I'm your host, Justin Stoddart. Very excited about today's episode. Before I introduce the topic, let me just restate my mission, which is to help you think bigger. Kind of when you think bigger, you end up growing as a person. And as you grow as a person, so grows your business, which opens up all kinds of opportunities, more options, as well as more impact. So I'm excited to have my good friend, Josh Hackenjos, with me here today. Let me just begin before I fully introduce you. Josh, thanks for being on the episode today.
Yeah, good morning, Justin. It's an honor to be here. I really appreciate you letting me come on here to chat.
Yeah, man, I appreciate you letting me twist your arm to have you come and pour value into this audience. I know every time you and I have conversations, I walk away a little bit smarter. And so I knew that you'd do that for this audience as well. So for those of you that don't know Josh, he got his start in the real estate industry back in 2005. He was a guy that would show up at the front yards of homes were getting ready to be sold, and he would dig the hole and put the sign in the yard. So a little humble beginnings, but he was a talented guy. So he moved from that to actually being a team owner, kind of ran his own real estate team, then was promoted and I should say recruited into a role in which he was had a very big leadership role within a very big Keller Williams office here in the Portland metro area. He's now a solo agent. He owns Hackenjos Property Group, as well as has built a coaching company called Community Empire, in which he helps agents with many of the things we're going to talk about today. So with all that being said, Josh, you and I both have a background in the construction industry. Yes, I had a contracting company. You've built homes yourself. And there's some common threads that you and I started to talk about, that that industry is well known for its craftsmanship, but not well known for its professionalism. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
For me, I didn't aspire to be in the construction world. I really grew up in a very business oriented family, and in the early 2000s, that was just a great business opportunity. And so I hopped on, as did many, and was able to benefit greatly from the construction industry until it kind of was no more. But in that time frame, it was interesting. As the construction market started to crash, I had to ask myself, I was asking mentors around me, I was like, what do you think this is going to mean for the industry? And their comment was, I think in 5 years, it'll be back. And for me, had I really loved building homes, had I really loved working with contractors day in and day out, I probably would have said, I'll wait for it, right? I'll do kitchen and bath remodels because I love this work. For me, I realized my passion was not building homes. It was building people and building businesses. And so the construction world actually at times was quite aggravating because subcontractors, again, they kind of fall into this typical concept of the E-Myth, right? If anyone's read the book E-Myth, I know, Josh, you have, that people are very good craftsmen, very good technicians. So they assume that they're going to be good business owners. They just kind of like, well, I'm good at doing finished carpentry, so I'm going to be good at building a finished carpentry business. And that wasn't always the case. Josh, I would imagine you had some similar experiences and ahas in your time in the contracting world.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny, as we've been riffing on this, the similarities to real estate are going to start popping up as we talk through this, because, right, you've got these. I came out of the new construction world, framing, and then doing finished carpentry, and in the remodel world. And you've got these guys who are amazing at their work, as a tile setter, as a finished carpenter, as an electrician. And while they are masterful in what they do there, they never went through the courses on how to run a business, how to hire, how to retain talent, how to run QuickBooks and get billing out, how to just show up as a business owner. Is this starting to sound a lot like realtors, right? Low barrier to entry, high level of skill and talent over here, and maybe not the business background to run it. And this is something, we were talking about this in terms of these general contractors who are out there who are so good at what they do, and yet the customer experience, the customer service and communication, expectation setting is where things fall apart, right? How often have you been in the middle of a remodel and it turns out, well, that sink is out 6 weeks, and so because the sink's not here, then the guy can't do the counter, and because the counter's not here, the plumber can't come in, right? And then we say, oh, my contractors had our place torn apart for 6 months. The frustration is due to a failure of setting expectations.
Yeah. And
all of this, right, let's draw parallels right out the gate. I wrote an offer, and then I never heard back of whether we got it accepted. Or we had no idea we were going to have to do these repairs as the seller, right? In the real estate world, there's all these correlations in terms of a failure to set expectations leads to a frustration with the experience. I think I'm drawing a parallel. It feels right.
Well, it's interesting because the people that, again, come into the construction world typically were raised by very craftsmen, artisans in the woodworking space or in the concrete space or whatever, without really a business background. In real estate agents, the industry doesn't necessarily attract to start people who have kind of deep business backgrounds. It's typically people that are great salespeople. They're great customer service people. So very similar to a contractor, like you're saying, they've got a certain skill set that lends itself very well to serving clients, to getting a certain product complete, a certain finished product. But the business and to not pick on real estate, to not pick on construction. Same thing happens in the dentist, in the dental industry, and even doctors, right? They're fabulous doctors, but a lot of times they're not great business people. They're fabulous dentists, but they're not great at running a business. It's two separate hats. It's two separate businesses. And I know what you and I have discussed. We believe that the future for well-paid real estate agents. Now, I believe that there will be a place for a lot of real estate agents. I think iBuyers will take a chunk of the pie. I really do. I think that there will also be a place for low-paid real estate agents, ones that are more like Uber drivers that are in a certain neighborhood and someone needs them to come open up a door, and they'll get a little ding on their phone. Hey, you need to open a door over here, and they'll get paid not well, but they'll get paid for that service.
It's a functionary role, right? A functionary role.
Yes.
It's simple functionary, right?
Yep, exactly. And then there will be a group that you and I are really trying to cater to and really help as many as will listen say, hey guys, there's a green pasture over here, right? There's a bright future if you become a consultant, right? Or an advisor and actually give people knowledge beyond just functionary tasks, more fiduciary role. Yeah. Talk to us about that, Josh, kind of your understanding and belief in this world where we believe real estate agents need to go to maintain the margins. First of all, to maintain the value to the client so that they can demand the margins that they're going to want.
Okay. Well, and I'm going to try to draw a few threads and then tie them all together. Cool. So I've been shouting from the mountaintops for a while now, as have a lot of people in our industry, locally and nationally, about the difference between a consultative approach and a sales approach, right? A consultant is going to be somebody who's sitting on the same side of the table as you, looking out at the problem. A salesperson is sitting on the other side of the table as you, trying to get you to come to the middle. And in my opinion, with my limited experience, I believe that consultative role is the future for a fiduciary real estate world, well-paid real estate brokers, right? And so the functionary role, no problem. We're always going to have that. And I guess I wanted to tie it through. If you haven't done this, I just encourage everyone to do this. Go take a stroll through a big shopping mall, okay? Like just go walk through. It's like a wasteland. No offense to anybody here who owns franchises in shopping malls. A lot of mom and pop businesses still in there. But you walk through, and I mean, I'm walking through a big empty warehouse, and if I remember, I need paper clips at home, I'm going to jump onto Amazon and buy it real quick. And yet I'm walking through, because there's nowhere in that space where I need consultative services, right? Because if I need the functionary thing of just what I need to buy, I'm just going to get it, because the world is heading that direction. Now, if I need specific help, and right, let's say I have a specific business meeting and I need a new shirt and tie thing to make sure I win it. I can walk into a Nordstrom and I know that I'm going to get approached by that person who's going to step in as a consultant from the moment I walk in the door, and I'm going to say, hey, this is what I need. And they're going to say, no problem. We can get you there. We can help you through it. And I'm in their hands and I'm being taken care of through the entire experience, because in that instance, I need consultation. Trust me, from a fashion standpoint, I need consultation. And yet, when I just need functionary things like paper clips and staples, I can handle that. So there's the line I'm drawing between consultation and salesperson. I don't need somebody just selling me something across the counter. Now, whether it's in real estate or in contracting services, when we come in and we are the expectation setter, we are the consultant of here's how the process is going to go. That is where our true value is. And I look at the people in my world that I pay top dollar to. They are the ones who are advising me and providing me consultative services to explain how I need to proceed in whatever aspect of my life. Cool. So the other thing that, I'm both in the real estate broker world and then in the coaching world. And we talk a lot about consultant versus coach. And is it all right if I kind of give my distinction there?
Absolutely. Let me just kind of agree with what you said there about salespeople. It is interesting how Amazon, to a large degree, has taken the place of a lot of different salespeople. Right? I think with the fact that today people can do video tutorials that really explain the need. Then you've got testimonials afterwards and 5 stars. People can kind of get their questions answered on basic products, on the basic selling process. And a common mentor that you and I have, Chris Suarez, who we were both able to hear from yesterday. He said that he believes that real estate professionals will never be totally replaced because real estate is such a large wealth determiner. Yes. And I agree with them when it comes to fiduciary tasks, like you're saying, of like advising people on whether they should buy or whether they should not, on where they should put an offer to get the home and where they should not. And I think sometimes it's not even questions. My good friend and mentor, James Adair of Sierra Pacific Mortgage, mentioned, he said, when he advises clients, oftentimes his clients will say, James, like, what am I not thinking about here? In other words, like, what question do I not even know to ask that you should be asking and then answering? I think it's really difficult for algorithms and even low-paid labor to perform that function, right? That's a truly fiduciary function. Whereas all the sales stuff will be replaced at some point as kind of an Amazon type feature, Uber type feature. Yeah. But that high level person that functions at a high level in the knowledge economy in which we live, that's where there's going to be opportunity. That's where people need high level help. That's where there's going to be a protected real estate advisor margin, right? Where people are going to need to move if they want to stay well paid in this industry.
Yeah. And that's okay. So, and there's so many good analogies here, right? When I need medical counsel, I can go to WebMD or I can go see my physician, right? When we've started and built and sold multiple businesses. And when you do that, you need an attorney involved at different points. And I could go Google how to make sure I stay on the straight and narrow, or I'm going to call my attorney because I value that consultative service. Mm-hmm. Because I'm not going to write the contract. They're going to do it. That's consultation. That means they're going to do the work for me because I need that, right? You can go onto your Ameritrade account and kind of goof around a little bit, but if you're trying to fund college or your retirement, like, you better have some good counsel to guide you through that. I could just keep on listing these analogies, but can we agree that there are services in which we need masterful expertise to guide us through the process? And I certainly hope that at an average price point of above $400,000, we are seeking professional counsel on these financial decisions in real estate.
Yeah, no,
I just think that we easily fall in that category. We better be careful not to slip down this path of, we're just salespeople. No. Like, salespeople are, we don't need that for these assets.
I think that's why we see more than ever clients talking about potential like fee negotiations with their agent, because their agent is showing up as one of many, right? Someone who can do same thing that other either tech companies and or other agents can do. Whereas when you start to position yourself as an advisor, right, or as a consultant in helping people, those conversations tend to be less and or off the table because you're leading with knowledge that you can't get from anyone else.
That's absolutely right. Okay, all right, and this is cool. So can I tie this to the general contractor?
Absolutely.
All right, so if you've ever had your house remodeled, right, it's a nightmare, right? You've got all these swarthy construction workers descending on your house and making a bunch of noise in the morning, and they're tearing things off, and there's plywood and blue tarps and all this stuff, right? So I knew that I worked for this guy, and he was so good with his people. He's a referral-based general contractor in the remodel sector, right? We want to be referral-based in real estate because it's just cheaper, like, let's be real. And you work with people who like you. He was so good. And here's what he would do. Let's say we're rolling out at 8 o'clock, right? You roll out your tools, you're getting everything going. He's going to show up at 7:45, and he's going to walk up the driveway, and he's going to scoop up the newspaper, and he's got coffee and donuts in the one hand, and he comes in, he knocks on the door and says, "Hey, here's morning paper." And he's got coffee and donuts he lays down. He remembers the kids' names. He remembers the dogs' names. He remembers what they were talking about last week when they did this. And he's there just shooting the breeze with the family while they're trying to get up and get the kids to school and everything, so that when 8 o'clock hits and the swarthy construction workers, me and the other dudes, we put out our cigarettes and we crank up the compressor and plug in the saws and start making all this noise that is disruptive, he has already softened the landing by being there in the kitchen, chatting through, how's everybody doing? Hey, just so you know, here's what's going to happen next, right? So they never have to ask. It's a failure if your client has to ask you what's next. It's our job to beat them to it, right? He would make the rounds to multiple jobs so that at least once a week, he was always hitting one of these to show up and do that touch, right? We read the Power of Moments recently.
Yeah, great book.
And Suarez was taking us through it, right? And you and I would mention Suarez, we've been talking about this book. And so this general contractor created this moment in what would have otherwise been a horrible daily disruption to people's lives, right? If you kick on an air compressor, you light up a saw, how noisy that is and disruptive when you're trying to get the kids off to kindergarten. And yet he would smooth that by setting expectations and creating moments. The only way he could do that was through good leverage. Because if he had to go sit in line at Par Lumber to pick up the materials for the day, then he couldn't be there to walk in with the donuts and coffee. Cool? So when we get back to E-Myth and we get back to real estate brokers, where are the instances in which we're doing the equivalent of sitting in line at the lumber yard instead of being there setting expectations and smoothing the path for our clients? And this is where, when I get into the coaching side of the business, this is what I'm focused on, is you got to get that leverage on those functionary parts of your business so you are just there for the golden moments of fiduciary and expectation setting. And at least for this general contractor I used to work for, the phone would ring. Big kitchen remodels, bath remodels, additions. The phone is ringing. He's not having to he's not buying leads, right? This is terminology that we use in our industry, buying leads. No, his phone just rang because he's loved on his people. He showed up, he set expectations. So I dig that parallel, and I'm excited about that parallel because I think there's so much to learn from that. And I mean, I'm working with a couple general contractors as well talking about this because in their business, it's still an issue. And the same conversation can be had in real estate. Okay, so there's my I've been kind of stewing on this all morning, so I had to get it out.
I love it, Josh. There's so many comparisons, and they're so real to me because it seems, it was just 10 probably short years ago that I was in that same spot, right? Where I had, now I wasn't doing remodels. I towards the end I was actually as a construction market. And I remember that it wasn't, even the construction process in general wasn't an overall enjoyable one for the clients. It was kind of exciting when they're building their dream home, but there's a lot of unsurety, and to just be able to assure people, right? And I did this great at sometimes, other times I didn't, and I learned the hard way. But to be able, like you said, to tell people, hey, this is what's happened, this is what's happening, and this is what's going to happen. It just puts people at ease. I knew that when I was a general contractor, I was not doing a good job when the client would call me and say, what's happening tomorrow? And you mentioned this, but I remember specific clients, and there would get a point where if a client had to do that too many times, pretty soon they're out in the evenings having to run their own job, or so they think. And now things are going fine, but because it wasn't communicated to them what was going, they feel like they've got to grab the wheel because no one else is grabbing it. And so there's this whole component of actually being on it and having a good team on it, and then also communicating it to where people actually know what's happening and they don't have to worry about it, right? It's not taking up space in their head.
So let me jump on that real quick. The moment that the homeowner in a remodel has to take the reins and maybe they have to figure out what's next or they have to do something, suddenly, do you think they're maybe questioning the fee that the general contractor, right? Because the general contractor, here's the work and then here's their fee.
Yeah.
And because they're taking on some of the functionary role and some of steering the ship a little bit, sometimes they say, what am I paying this guy for if I don't even know what's happening next? Can we please link this to the real estate conversation in which if we are there setting expectations and smoothing the path for everything that's going to happen such that we are consulting them through this process, if we're doing our job, I don't think the value comes into question. Brilliant guy in our office, I love him, Rick Sadel, and he threw this down years ago. He said, cost is only an issue in the absence of value, right? Cost is only an issue in the absence of value. Whether you're a general contractor tearing apart someone's kitchen, or you're a real estate broker helping them sell their home, like if we're doing our job, that conversation doesn't come up.
Well,
we need systems and organization to make it look effortless, right? It takes wild orchestration and control on our part to make it look easy and make it look effortless.
I mean, what are some key takeaways, Josh, that people could do if they're saying like, I know I need to increase the professionalism in my practice, right? I'm a good real estate agent, for example, but there's some breakdowns in my overall customer experience as soon as things get busy, right? As soon as things get busy, these touch points kind of go out the window. At what point would you say, I mean, what would you recommend? At what point do you hire somebody? And this is a whole, like opening up numerous topics, right? Which is a kind of a subtle invitation for you to come back and pour more value into the audience again. But what advice, like what's step one, even in evaluating as to if they need to add leverage?
Okay, so one of the fun exercises that I've been doing with some real estate agents is I'm interviewing them for the position they hold in their current organization, right? So we go through this process, and we've got some great proprietary hiring, interviewing, and retaining talent products and curriculum over there at the KW World. And even some things like my coach comes out of the tech industry, right? So I'm not even coaching within the real estate sector. And so I'm pulling in things from other industries. But one of the really valuable exercises that I've gone through with people who will allow me to is to interview them for the role they currently hold in their own organization and see if they're a good fit for what they're doing. And this is fun. It's kind of terrifying. If you go through and say, oh, wow, it looks like you're doing some activities in your role that are not your area of peak performance, right? Like Peter Drucker, like focus on the areas in which, superior performance on your part will produce outstanding results. Well, we're going to focus on those areas and get rid of everything else. So that would be step one, is to put yourself through a rigorous, standards conversation for your own role in the organization. I don't care if you're the owner or you're the listing broker. Cool, let's test you for the role. Are you good at that role? And what are you doing in there that you're not really good at? So that would be step one. And then by doing that, typically we're going to identify those aspects of the business that could benefit from leverage. Because we got to pull you out of that $15 an hour activity and put you into that $200 an hour activity. And then just do more of that, right? I think that's a fun one. For the people with whom I've worked who will allow me to take them through that process, we have a good time doing it. And we usually learn a lot about their business. And we're just poking at the weak spots. You know?
Here's an example that of an exercise that I'll have agents do that I think is, I was actually reminded of this when you said this, but have them identify what is their ideal dollar per hour. Like what do they actually want to be making per hour, and compare that versus what their daily task list looks like. And then ask them, okay, it looks like you're doing your own paperwork. Would you go to Craigslist and pay somebody $200 an hour to do your paperwork? They're like, $200 an hour? Are you kidding me? Well, it's like, well, you just answered the question that you probably don't belong in that role. If that's really what you want to get paid, you cannot be focusing on activities that don't pay $200 an hour. You only can be focused on activities where you are doing $200 an hour activities if you actually want to make that much, right?
And I would argue that I'm a slow money guy. Like I believe in that long, slow, right? Success is sequential, not simultaneous. And so there are some areas where we can get fuzzy on this. Like a lot of people say, okay, well then I'm going to just pick up the phone, dial. Well, you caught me today. I'm in the middle this morning of swapping out a couple of water heaters at houses here in my neighborhood. And I do a lot of, like the company's Community Empire. My wife owns a business in the yoga world. I do a lot of community stuff. We do a lot of stuff together around music and health and wellness and things like that. And I would argue that there are instances where I'm just hanging out with my neighbors and I'm doing that $200 an hour activity because I'm investing in my community. And the long-term return on investment there is that I get to work with cool people who I like working with, who are grateful for my level of service. And I don't have to go chasing off, I don't buy leads. I just invest in my community. So I would say if I'm out helping my neighbor doing something, I may be doing my highest dollar per hour activity. So be careful in what we categorize as our key activity. Because, I don't do that with the like ulterior motive of like, oh, I'm going to do this and then it's just, no, I believe that if we invest in our communities, we will be rewarded with trust. And if we have a business that requires trust, it will flourish in that environment. So,
great stuff, Josh.
Yeah, like if I'm pulling weeds for my neighbor, I may be doing $200 an hour activity.
Interesting.
Cool. Yeah.
Love it. All right, Josh, last question here. It's our signature question that you're unprepared for, but I know a guy like you, since you are a big thinker, you belong on the Think Bigger Real Estate Show. What's something that you do on a regular basis to think bigger, to intentionally position yourself to be a big thinker, to expand your own possibilities?
Oh, boy. So this is so funny because there's what I should do every day and then what I actually do. I think my life has been changed through a couple of health and wellness decisions. Both you can ask a couple of the other guys who you've had on the show as well about this. We've worked with a specific boxing trainer. I'll give him a call out, Ben Metz down at Portland City Boxing. If you want a mindset coach, go get punched in the face first thing in the morning. And everything else in your day is easy compared to what you did first thing in the morning, curled up in a fetal position crying. That's how I start my day. And so call Ben Metz and set it up. But I would just say around some of those things, getting the mindset of the limitations that we put in our way that are purely mental. Like you can do one more push-up, you can run one more lap. The only thing stopping you is mindset. And when I learned that from this lovely dude down there, Ben Metz, that became applicable in my world. And I feel like I've seen the biggest reward and return from that, from anything else, just from realizing that the boundaries in my way were primarily mental. And so a big thanks to that guy. But I would say, and like I said, I try to get there. I miss my yoga routine a lot of days because I just don't feel like it because I'm full from a cheeseburger and milkshake. But when I'm on, I'm trying to hit that routine.
I love it, man. That's an answer I haven't heard before. I love that. Start off by getting punched in the face every day, and then everything else seems easier. That's awesome.
Everybody's got their thing.
I love it, dude. Well, thank you. I want to thank you so much for the value that you poured into the audience today and into me. Always do. For those of the audience that are interested in staying in contact with Josh, you can find him on social media. You can also email him if you want to talk specifically about his group coaching. josh@hackenjos.com. He's got some great stuff to offer people. I know he helps a lot of people. So I want to thank you again, Josh, for being such a valuable guest and such a good friend. Appreciate you, man, very much.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on here.